Hey everybody, it's Long134 here.
It was Joe Squad here.
Welcome to another episode of Remember the Hyphen, the show where we look at comic books, movies, and everything in between. And look at this. I have a Legion ring. I'm chosen.
Do you want me to get my Barbara Gordon Funko Pop out?
Yeah, sure. So we're actually out and about.
It's relevant.
It's relevant. There's gonna be a video coming up on my channel where we unboxed a Sega CD. Link in the description. Or when it comes up, but I'll probably link to this actually. But yeah, we found some like comic book places. I found a couple of Transformers from Transformers Energon, but yeah, this was we found this comic book store and they had these Legion rings that they were gonna do. But so anyway, so a couple days ago, probably like a week now. I know we're a little behind on the currency of it, but like this is usually when we shoot. This is usually the time we have to shoot. So excuse me. But so there was an article written by the guy who's been doing the Black Lightning TV show, which, you know, I actually kind of forgot that there was a Black Lightning TV show.
Same. Haven't seen anything from it.
I mean, I'm sure it's good. It's on the CW. They do some pretty good work for the most part. I mean, aside from
It'll be better when it's made for a woman.
But speaking of Arrow, that's actually going to be important to this argument. But basically, he said in an article, which I probably should have looked it up. Yeah, Mr. Backpack here. So, basically, he said, and this is the article's title, was that for every Batman thing that gets made, another superhero doesn't get something made of it. This coming from the guy who's doing the C-list character Black Lightning. Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, like, I love Black Lightning. He's cool. But, like, most of the stories I know him from is when he was a member of the Outsiders or the JSA. Like, he's not really a character that I've ever seen have, like, his own stories. He's not Mr. Terrific or, like Green Arrow, for instance. Because, like, before that TV show, he was a C-lister. He really was. Yeah. As much as I like Green Arrow, he was not. But, and this is a common complaint I always get where it's like, well, Batman's so popular, nobody else makes anything, which is pretty much, like, they blame the character of Batman. And that's pretty much what this episode is about, is the Batman problem, essentially. So, like, you know, like, and what you're going to find is I don't necessarily agree with his version of that, but I do think there is a problem in general. But it's not because of Batman, but it's something due to Batman. So what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
It kind of seems to me like it's kind of like I kind of relate it to the problem of the '90s where everything was X-Men over Marvel. Everything X-Men except Spider-Man, because Spidey was the only thing outselling them.
Yeah.
It really just is a problem of, well, I see the guy's point and it's a valid one. It's also a problem of, well, you're right, a C-list character. Yeah. That's gonna be a thing. Even B-listers, you know, which obviously have a little bit easier time. Yeah. Like I would kind of consider Supergirl a B-list.
Yeah, I would consider her a B.
It's like it's easier to get stuff for B-listers because it's all about trickle down. Obviously the most popular ones are going to be at the top.
Yeah.
The somewhat popular ones are going to be a B, and then so on and so forth. So when you write for a C-level character, it's going to be apparent that you're not going to get as much attention. You're not going to get as much cash and stuff thrown at you. You're not obviously going to get the best creative team. It's really just it's like, well, that's just the inherent problem of writing for a C-lister character.
Yeah, I you know, like. And to be fair, like I said, I don't really completely disagree with the guy, because I think there is an issue with surrounding Batman, but it's not his popularity. You know, because here's the thing, Batman makes money. You know, like, no, even if like the thing is bad, people inherently go to see it because of the name.
And that's what the companies are out for. They're out, at the end of the day, they're out for money.
You know, like
money's how they stay in business.
Yeah, like when Spider-Man came out, like people went and saw those movies because. Not like, because a lot of people will say, well, it's because Sam Raimi's name was on. I'm like, no, I would argue it's Spider-Man, because Spider-Man's like a household.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man's a household name. Batman's a household name.
Wonder
Woman's a household name. Superman, the X-Men, like these are all characters that have been on books,
referenced
books, video games. They have children's wear them on their shirts. Adults wear them on their shirts.
Pajamas as well.
Pajamas, like they've been everywhere.
Lunch boxes.
And backpacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like him and I liked Captain Marvel, but let's be honest, not a lot of people know Captain Marvel.
No, which is upsetting.
Which is upsetting, but like,
yeah, says the guy with the Captain Marvel backpack and the Captain Marvel hoodie on.
I sadly, it's getting cold. And most of my superhero.
And actually, I have a Captain Marvel shirt on under this.
So I'm wearing my nice sweater, but like that's my like inherent problem with this whole thing is that it's not fair, especially because Batman has almost always been in the popular eye because he's been like since like back when they were doing movie serials. Batman has always had something. Like the only thing I think he never had was like radio serials.
Which I know he appeared on the Superman once. Does that count?
No, not like him cameoing doesn't really count to me. Like having your own radio. Like
I'm not sure if he did or not.
Blue Beetle had his own radio series,
which is weird.
But I mean, I'd argue it's because Steve Ditko helped him out there. But so yeah, like for me, I it's hard for me to get to say that's wrong, especially because like without those characters making money for the company, they couldn't put that money back into characters that are lesser.
Yeah.
Like. And I think that's a shame, but at the same time, I like I said, getting to the part that I think is the problem with Batman is less his popularity and more the fact that DC wants everything to be like Batman because Batman sells. Like, I think we were having this conversation a while ago, but like that's one of my problems I have with the Arrow TV show is that he's too much like Batman. He's dark and moody. Like, yeah, he does have some of Ollie's humor, but he's very much just Batman if he dressed up like Robin Hood. Like, that's my inherent problem with the character, with that character. Like, not only that, like, most of the villains he fights aren't Green Arrow villains. Apparently, they did show Electrocutioner once in Count Vertigo, but, like, the other ones I've seen, he's fighting with Ra's al Ghul, like, Deathstroke and Deadshot. Although Deadshot would be kind of a cool villain for Green Arrow to fight since they're both marksmen.
The inherent problem is they're all Batman villains.
Yeah, like
traditionally associated with Batman-related characters.
And like I know that's a problem because Green Arrow himself doesn't have a lot of really interesting villains, but like you did it because you wanted it to be Batman.
It's not like Supergirl, where a lot of Supergirl's villains are also Supermans.
Yeah, but like I mean, to be fair, like much like with Batgirl, that's a lot of the problem is the fact that because they're so intrinsically tied because they have the brand.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to end up fighting their villains anyways, and sadly enough. That's the same with Robin or Nightwing or, like, any of the other members of the Bat family.
Let me rephrase it. It'd be like with the Batwoman show if he was fighting Flash villains.
Yeah. That'd be weird.
If you had Batwoman fighting Flash villains, it just wouldn't make sense.
Like, if she ran into Captain Cold instead of Mr. Freeze.
Could he be cold, Batman?
But like, and so I think the problem with the Batman thing in general is just because is less Batman and more Christopher Nolan. Because
which is also the inherent problem with the DC
in general.
AU. Like the DCEU is that they're chasing the Nolan film.
Because everyone always would be like, well, Zack Snyder. I'm like, have you watched like any of Zack Snyder's superhero stuff after Watchmen? It very much is trying to be like Christopher Nolan. Like the Jesus allegories in Man of Steel
and in Justice League.
Although to be fair, that's not really their fault because like they're doing the death and return of Superman, so that's unfortunately going to just be a product of bringing him back to life.
It's just that the inherent problem, and this kind of dipping into the what's wrong with the DCEU.
Yeah, but I
the problem is just that DC, in an attempt to chase the money.
Yeah.
They're both chasing Nolan and they're also chasing the MCU because they want their own MCU style thing where they have this big arching franchise with all their characters and all the characters have movies and they're making all this money. But the problem is they want to do that, but they also want to do it like Nolan did. And the problem is there's a lot of fans that don't like the Nolan films. Like the two of us, we're not fans necessarily of the Nolan films.
I mean, like I like Dark Knight, but like my inherent problem with the Nolan films, and when day we actually talk about the Nolan Batman films, we'll get more into it. But like
one of these days, that retrospective will come.
Is for me like, and a lot of people don't get it. Is that like it took the material seriously, which is the one thing I liked about it.
But it didn't.
But it takes it seriously in a way that Nolan likes it, because he doesn't like characters and costumes. He doesn't like the imagery to just say what it says on the screen. Like, everyone in those movies has to talk about why Batman does what he does. When that's something you should just be able to see. Like, look at the Tim Burton Batman film. There are times where they don't say anything. Like, when Batman goes to the theater where his parents were killed and he puts the roses down. You know why he's there and what he's doing. Like it says stuff without you being forced
that
down your
goes
throat.
back to the fact that, and I'm gonna apologize to anyone in advance that's a big fan of the Nolan films, is that Nolan treats us all like we're fucking dipshits.
No, it really does. He really treats the audience like you're too stupid to get it. It was the same way in Inception, and I like Inception. Like they have to talk about every little thing about that,
Yeah.
and some of it's for
The
world
problem
building.
is that's its own world, which a lot of people are not familiar with. With Batman, most people know the mythos, at least in the most basic of forms. It's kind of like the Superman mythos.
Yeah.
Everybody, or the Spider-Man mythos. Most people have heard of them.
Yeah.
Know what goes on. They may not know all the specifics and the details, but they know okay, Batman. Parents were killed. He fights crime dressed as a bat. There you go. That's the basic mythos boiled down to a nutshell.
You know, and there's also that whole like, I wanna show how everything works. I wanna explain why Batman has this ludicrous car by being like this weird mountain excavation thing, like the Tumbler, or like why he's making batarangs or why he picked the symbol of the bat. I'm like, you don't need to do that, like because that should just speak for itself. If you're a good enough filmmaker. Sometimes you don't need to say anything. You can just put it on the screen and people will get it.
To me, that's why the Tim Burton film is infinitely better than any of the Nolan films.
Well, with the exception of Dark Knight for me, but I mean, because I like the Dark Knight, and it.
It's because
Well,
Dark Knight works because they at least still did Joker's costume.
Well, then I feel like a lot of it is because because Ledger and Bale wanted it so much to be like the Long Halloween and like that like Nolan had kind of no choice but to make it. With because like the Joker actually wears a costume, like he actually looks like the Joker. You know, Batman actually does Batman-y things in it, whereas the other movies they're just not like that. You know,
especially Dark Knight Rises.
And that's like a problem with DC in general, where they want it to be so gritty and dark and realistic.
And the fanboys just love that, and it's like, guys, like that. While you might like it, it doesn't mean that it's a good movie, and it doesn't mean that it's going to keep making money.
Well, and
at the end of the day, it's going to get to a point if Warner Brothers doesn't kick this shit up,
No.
they're just going to stop making it because they're like, there's no money involved.
Or they'll just drop DC, and DC won't have a parent company, and probably will sadly get bought up by Disney. But, like, and for me, a lot of that's the problem is, like, the current DC, a lot of them want to, like, at least the one faction of the fandom is like, we do intellectual movies. I'm like, no, you don't. You do dark, grim movies that are colorless and are just bland. Like the thing with Man of Steel is like it so much focuses on the fact that he's an alien, and like, but that's not who Superman is. Superman doesn't think of himself as an alien. He thinks of himself as an adopted child, a son of this world that he inhabits and he protects, and shows that there's a better way. Like the Superman in this, like, just is so weird. Like the part I always go back to is how badly written Jonathan Kent is in Man of Steel. Like that scene where after he rescues all the kids, like, and I get the idea is that he's afraid for his son, but he would not tell his son that he should have let a bus full of children die. Because at the end of the day, Jonathan and Martha Kent are the people that shape Superman for who he is. He's a person with good morals and believes that we fight for the dreams and hope that we have. And that he's not a god who flies above everyone. He walks alongside us and tries to show us that we can rise to something better. The Superman in this is just a jerk. And like a lost in... Like, he's like New 52 Superman. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like... A Superman that is not the symbol of hope in the DC universe is not good. Is kind of my problem. But getting back to the chasing, like with Sony when they made Amazing Spider-Man, we had to have a scene where we watch him build the web shooters. I didn't care about watching him build the web shooters. That was one of the reasons why I like the Raimi films decided to just have him have the organic webbing. And yes, I know that there are problems with that, but like. At least I didn't have to sit there and watch him build the stupid web shooters. I don't get why
everybody gets butthurt about the organic webbings.
Because it's not canon. It's not. That's most people. It's not canon.
The symbiote black suit has organic webbing. So I'm like, that's what I don't get. I'm like, it's not totally comic accurate, but at the same time, it does it in a way that it's like it's not insulting.
That was one of the reasons.
Canon.
That was one of the reasons why I'm happy. Like when the MCU introduced Spider-Man, he had been Spider-Man a while, so we didn't have to see him build the web shooters. You just know he made them. like there's just this thing where like it has to be gritty and real, and we have to explain how everything works. But we're watching superhero movies.
And this is why Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and Shazam all did infinitely better than Batman v Superman.
Well, they're good, but they didn't. You say that, but the DC fans didn't go see Shazam because they're like, well, it's too kiddie looking and colorful, so I didn't go see it.
Yeah, 40,000 neckbeards that need to get the fuck out of the basement.
I
get the criticism of that, but I'm like. They were infinitely better films. It's not like you want to know the greatest example I have of like, oh, we can make things dark and gritty. 2015 Fantastic Four, aka the movie where you can't see anything.
I usually call it Fan-4-Stick turn on a light, is what I call it.
Yeah, it's
like
not everything has to be dark and gritty like that. It's so.
And the problem is, like, a lot of people like the mistake is that gritty and realism are the same thing, and it's not.
No.
Like all those movies are like they have so much like they have a filter over it to make everything gray. Look outside this window right now. Tell me what colors you see other than gray.
Green, yellow, blue, red.
Have you ever seen those in a DC
white.
movie?
No. Justice League, but that's just because they put a red filter over everything.
Well, and then that movie is its own flaws, where it's trying to be both like Nolan,
well,
and then you get Josh Whedon in to make it like the Avengers.
Well, yeah, because that's Warner Brothers' fault. That's studio editing.
But like, so yeah, like that's my big argument for this, because I wanted to talk about this, was just how much Batman. It's not Batman. The problem is they're trying to make everything like Batman, and I've argued that for years, and no one wants to tell. And a lot of people like to tell me I'm wrong on that. And it's like, but like the Superman stuff, he very much acts like Batman. You know, like he's very conflicted and brooding. That's Batman. Superman is not conflicted. I mean, he has some conflictions, and he worries like he oversteps his bounds, but like he never is conflicted about doing the right thing. You know, like Batman, his conflictions and such is how far do I go in my crusade against crime? Whereas Superman, it's how much should I do before I end up making myself a god or imposing myself as the dictator of Earth?
Oh, what, like he does in Superman 4?
Like, I understand what Christopher Reeves was doing when he wrote that script, but like it's a misunderstanding of the character and how that's not a thing that he would ever consider doing.
Yeah. I
mean, he would, but at the end of the day, he'd be like, no, I'm not a god to tell you all what to do. You know, I will try to save you and guide you in the right way, but I'm not here to rule you. You know, like, speaking of, look at Kingdom Come, the difference between the two when Superman left. You know, when Superman left, he stopped doing everything. Whereas Batman decided, I'm getting too old for this, so I'm going to turn Gotham City into a police state, where my bat robots will walk the streets and protect people from crime. Although, to be fair, like, they never really showed how that was a bad thing with Batman. Because, like, they show it, and I'm like... And, like, that's my only complaint with Kingdom Come, is they try to say that Batman's, like, a fascist police state. Turn Gotham into a fascist police state. I'm like... I mean, I don't see him, like, having the robots arrest a jaywalker.
Yeah.
Like, we see... When they show up, they're stopping, a mugger from killing, like, a kid. So I'm like... It seems like Batman's still just being Batman. It's just
on a grander scale.
On a grander scale. But, like, that's just me. You know, it's like, it's so funny because, like, when I was younger, God, that makes me sound so old, but, you know, like, the idea, like, the DC universe was more like Superman, where everyone was colorful and sometimes a little silly, but at the end of the day, like, they were heroes.
Kind of like Golden Age stuff.
And Batman was, and one of the reasons why Batman was so good was because he was so inherently different from that universe. He's kind of like how the Punisher is so inherently different from, or not the Punisher, Captain America. You know, whereas, like, the Marvel Universe used to be, like, you know, there was a sense of realism in that, like, these people had real emotions, like, you know, like Spider-Man.
Like real problems.
Yeah, real problems. And then you have Captain America, who's literally, like, just this living legend of World War II who fought for truth, you know, for truth, justice, the American way, and was, like, you know, this like he was like a larger than life character, much like a lot of the DC universe is. And Batman was the guy who was, you know, like this world is dark and damaged, and everyone else doesn't see it like I do, sort of thing. Which was what made Batman so unique for DC. That he was he was somewhat larger than life and such, but like he was a man. You know, he had more money than other people, but like at the end of the day, he was a man who was trying to fix his city and saw the world for the black and white darkness that it was. Whereas the rest of the DC universe isn't like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But Batman is necessary for the DC universe to make sense.
Yeah.
But like it's because he's the only one that's like that. But that's like my overall problem with like the DCEU or the DC universe or the movie universe is that everything's like Batman, so like why should I care?
It doesn't make him as unique.
Yeah, and that's I think one of the reasons why Batman was so popular, because he's so different from everything else. That like if you don't like the weird adventures where Superman occasionally like wears a zebra costume or like fights giant robots and stuff, that you have Batman who fights actual like crime. You know, much like how like, you know, like with Marvel, there's realistic crime and villains. I mean, somewhat. There's still supervillains, but like, and then you have Cap who's fighting Nazis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So it's all, what it really comes down to is that they see arguably their most, I'm not even gonna say arguably, Batman is obviously DC's most popular character.
Oh yeah, no,
he's eclipsed Superman at this point.
Oh no, completely.
He eclipsed Superman a long
time ago. Well, because like
no dissing, not
dissing the Man of Steel.
Soups.
Yeah, man, I love Superman. But because like it is funny because like
Superman party, but I like Superman.
Because like I feel like in the '80s that was like, but when the Dark Age happened, Batman was one of the few DC characters that could actually survive the Dark Age, because like. Yeah. You talking about extreme and armor and all that's Batman.
I'm the goddamn Batman.
Like, for everyone who complains about Azrael when he was Asbats, like, to be fair, he's still sold, because like I know it's overly 90s-ish, but that I do kind of love the Azrael Batman design.
But it's just that they see, okay, this is the character that's making us the most money.
Yeah.
How do we make more characters like this? Because it's actually busting out the graduate degree in history here, given that I wrote my thesis on comic book history. That's honestly the reason why there are so many superheroes now, is because Superman came out and basically exploded, and even DC was like, we gotta have more.
Well, in this universe,
where's more?
In this universe, yes, but in the Watchmen universe, Captain Manhattan Dr. Manhattan was a real superhero god.
No, mate,
and Superman
it's all horseshit. It's all horseshit.
Sorry, I couldn't resist making the universe
joke.
It's all
horseshit. Yeah, but actually decided I'm going to grow this out. I'm going to go for the Alan Moore look.
But like getting back to what you were saying about like
but
superheroes.
It's just that so much about the industry, sadly, is that the companies at the end of the day, they're chasing the dollar.
It really
That's
is.
why Batman exists. That's why Wonder Woman exists. That's why all these other heroes exist, whether they were DC creations, Marvel creations, where they were made by other companies that DC or Marvel bought out. Kind of like what was the one that DC acquired Blue Beetle and stuff from?
That was the Charlton comics.
Yeah,
it was
like
Blue
Charlton.
Beetle, The Question.
The one. What was the? Do you remember what the other one was? The one that like Hawkman came from, and the Flash.
I honestly
Green Lantern.
no. Flash and Green Lantern was actually their own.
Was it?
Hawkman I think was something else.
From like All Star.
Yeah, I think it was from All Star is actually what Captain America comes from. That was a Marvel original.
Okay, well, it's like regardless, it's like all these characters exist because at the end of the day, companies are like, we gotta have something like Superman because that's gonna make us some money.
Well, DC more. Marvel, honestly, most of all their characters were Stan Lee created, and like
but even then, it existed in the world that was sparked because DC was like, okay, we need more, and then other companies also looked at it and were like, wow, Superman makes money. We got to get our own characters like this,
like Captain Marvel. And I'm not talking about that Captain Marvel.
We're talking about Shazam.
I was just about to say that. I was like, we're not talking about this Captain Marvel. We're talking about Shazam.
But yeah, that's really what it is. And while I can kind of see why there are so many things nowadays with DC, like DC being dark and gritty, DC having characters that are like a lot like Batman now, like Arrow, like you mentioned. It's all about just that they're like, this makes money, and if it makes money, we're gonna flood the market with it because they're like, we can make more money.
but then the problem is like.
Yeah, there's also, there's problems with it.
Yeah, like, cause like for me, like it's like watching these characters that I grew up with, like watching on Justice League or just comics in general, that I know how they are, and like you're twisting them to try and force them into this mold. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it's obviously there's disadvantages to chasing the dollar, as there should be. There's Shazam, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, all great movies.
Yeah,
I mean, you and I both did a video on Shazam when it came out.
Yeah, I was so surprised how good that was.
We went into it and we were like, man, this is like great.
Yeah, no, because you and I expected it to be there is some darkness to it, but it's dark in ways that make sense. Like when
he kills the whole board.
Yeah, when Dr. Zhivago
that
kills
makes sense.
Yeah, no, that was, and not only that, it was great because like you don't see any of it. Like they cut away.
But as you mentioned, some of the DC fans are like, well, I'm not going to go see it because it looks kiddie-ish, and it's like that's the inherent problem of you start chasing the Batman money, is that it's like, it gets to a point that it's like, not only is it going to alienate people that are like, I don't want dark and gritty 100% of the time, but then you're going to have people that are like, well, I don't want anything that's not dark and gritty 100% of the time.
And you get this weird split.
Civil War.
Like, which is kind of funny because like, while CW did have just Arrow, like other superhero shows they've done are not like that at all. Like Flash, Supergirl.
I think Batwoman's probably arguably the closest right now.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, it makes sense for Batwoman because it's Batwoman. But like, or the one that really upsets me, Gotham.
We don't talk about Gotham.
Which is hilarious because Gotham is literally trying to do the Smallville thing, but with Batman, and it doesn't work. Like, it just doesn't work at all. But yeah, it's kind of funny because, like, it's almost kind of like a reverse of Marvel, where all the Marvel movies are much more for general audiences, and then you have the Netflix Marvel series they were doing, like Daredevil. Like, I would never let
Defenders.
I would never let a child watch Punisher or Daredevil, or especially Jessica Jones.
Yeah, don't want.
There are so many people who are like, "Oh, David Tennant, he's so dreamy. I'm gonna love him in Jessica Jones."
It's like, no.
And then he was the Purple Man, and I actually know people who try to justify that the Purple Man's not nearly as much of a rapist as he is in that. I'm like, no, he's a rapist with mind control powers. He is messed up and disgusting. Like one of my favorite comics is when I think it's Luke Cage, Jessica Jones' now husband. Like, he tries to use his mental powers on Luke, and he's like, that doesn't work on me. And then he proceeds to just beat the crap out of the Purple Man. Like, I'm like,
that don't work on me.
I'm like, yeah, no. I was like, thank you. I rather enjoy that because he's done it to some other people. Like, I think he's trying to mind control like other women. Like, I almost want to say he did the Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel's like, first off, I've got cosmic senses that don't work on me, and second of all, I'm gonna beat you. And I'm not going to stop until you're a purple stain on the floor.
Until you're fucking rooting the ground.
Until you're a purple stain on the floor. But you know, like, because like, and that's the other thing. Like that was them chasing the dark, like grim gritty stuff. But it worked because like, it's not trying to be Batman. Like Daredevil is dark. Like I've read some Daredevil stories that are just dark and depressing. Punisher, you know, the Punisher murders people. The Punisher's a serial killer. Like, it makes sense for it to be dark. Jessica Jones, which I never got around to watching Jessica Jones. I know of it.
I've seen the first episode, but I need to go back. I need to go back and watch all the Marvel TV shows. I'm starting to. I'm on Daredevil right now.
I'd like to pick up the books she was the Alias which is it's so hilarious. It's called Alias. They can't call that on TV because of the Jennifer Garner Alias TV show.
Yeah.
Which is funny because, like, I think the reason it's called Alias is because it's short for an acronym for her detective agency, like, also known as Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
And although it is kind of funny, Jessica herself actually got way lighter once she joined the Avengers with Luke. Like, Jessica kind of picked herself up, which was good until they're like, hey, Bendis is gone. What if we made that her daughter turn purple, and possibly hint that her daughter's the Purple Man's kid and not Luke's?
Yeah, it's like, there we go. It's
Thanks
back and forth.
It is a back and forth because, you know, for a long time Marvel was kind of the dark one of the two, especially after getting out of the Dark Age when they started doing like the Maxi series and like like Punisher Max,
Clone Saga,
yeah,
Clone Saga, dark.
Yeah, really dark. You know, and like X-Men, you know, were technically kind of dark for a time, you know, because they had all sorts of really dark, twisted stuff like Dark Phoenix. And And to be fair, it is kind of funny how you mentioned
you can do a whole study on the mind control stuff in Dark Phoenix and how fucked up that is.
Oh, very much so.
I'm actually writing a paper currently on failures of adaptations of Dark Phoenix, as in why can't these film companies just make Dark Phoenix?
One of these days, you and I need to get Cody, and we need to just sit down and do the talking about adaptation thing again, because that was such a great.
The lost episode, as we call it.
Yeah, we filmed an episode, and my phone crashed when we were doing it.
Yeah, right at the end. I mean, this was like an hour, almost 2 hours.
And it was such a good conversation. I know we won't be able to get it as good as it was, but I feel bad because we've had all these other people on, and he's he was
technically the original guest star.
Yeah, he was technically the original guest star.
It's lost. It's lost footage. Lost media.
Which, yeah.
We need to get him on here. We'll have to try for a Saturday night or something. Get him to...
Yeah, and just
sit
down and just...
Yeah, we'll just sit down and do stuff.
But
digress.
But, and to be fair, DC does have its other problems. And I don't think it's just inherently Batman, because, it's also, like you said, trying to chase the MCU. With Suicide Squad. That was a movie that should have been like Batman, like a dark, gritty movie about these...
Instead, it was chasing Guardians.
Yeah, because they're like the minute after Guardians came out, they changed the movie to make it more like Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm like, but I don't want it to be like Guardians of the Galaxy. Of all the things you made, that's the one I don't want. Granted, there's other flaws with it. They're like, well, Suicide Squad, we're actually being an anti-Superman group. I'm like, why in God's name would you make an anti-Superman group with a guy whose power is I'm really good at throwing boomerangs?
The problem isn't Jared Leto's Joker and how ass it is.
Oh, there's lots of other problems with Suicide Squad.
But that's what we're going to focus on.
Well, no, I'm focusing on... For me, the inherent story flaw of taking this group that's supposed to be a government black ops that's made of supervillains that are disposable and can have no ties to the government to do their dirty work. They're an anti-Superman group. That's why we gave it to a guy whose powers is I can throw boomerangs, and Harley Quinn. That's another DC. We might have to do the DC Harley Quinn problem at some point too, because I used to love Harley Quinn, and DC's just kind of I love how people they've said that she's
oversaturated.
Well, no, she's the fourth pillar of the DC universe because she's one of the few things that has worked.
To kind of circle this one back to try to wrap things up a little bit. It's I think that's just the inherent problem is that DC is trying to play catch up basically.
Yeah.
And they've really been doing that since I would argue the 70s, where they've been trying. It wasn't so much back then as it is now.
I'd probably say more the 90s, just because of the fact that they when they got to do Batman, that was it all comes back to Batman. The Tim Burton movies, because the Tim Burton movies, that was for a long time the few Marvel films that were coming. Because what other superhero movies came out around that? Howard the Duck, and the
Superman 4,
the 80s Punisher movie with Dolph Lundgren as the Punisher.
Oh, you don't want to talk about 70s Cap?
We don't talk about 70s Cap. Well, because I'd argue that the 70s were pretty good for Marvel. They had the Hulk TV show. They were doing a bunch of shows, and while they didn't all work, they still got them out. The only DC show, Spider-Man, the only DC show that anyone knew about was the Adam West Batman show.
What about Shazam?
Oh yeah, I forgot Shazam did have a TV show around that time, didn't he?
Yeah.
I've never seen it though, because I've no idea.
I've seen bits and pieces. I don't know if it's commercially available.
And even then, I almost don't think that it was made as a DC property at that point, because I think DC had. Well, it was kind of weird.
It's late 70s, so I mean, if anything was leased, it was being leased from Fawcett.
Yeah,
I can't remember exactly when it became DC just bought it.
I want to say it was around that time, because it was because Infinite Crisis was how they finally got Shazam, because it was its own thing, and then Crisis on Infinite Earths happens, and that's how Shazam got pulled into the DC universe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it would have been about that time then.
But it's just that there's been such massive success with Batman that it's you'd be at one point you'd be an idiot not to chase that money.
You would.
But at the same time, you'd be an idiot to chase that money, because then you're sacrificing creative integrity. And it's kind of a war of do you go for the money or do you keep creative integrity? How do you balance that out to where you're making money, but you're being creative integrity as well. It's a difficult process.
Yeah, and I think the problem is that sometimes you just have to admit, and I wish DC would just sit down and be like, because they clearly did it with Shazam, was like, can we make this like Batman or the rest of the things that people like about us? And they looked and they're like, we really can't. Like we're not gonna make this like Marvel because we're still gonna have some dark elements to it, but
it's
we
like
can't
the
make
thing
it
is,
like Batman.
Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Shazam proved like, look, they can do good movies.
And even then, like Wonder Woman, I argue they were still kind of chasing the Marvel money with because it was clearly like their version of Captain America: The First Avenger.
It really was.
But like it was its own thing in a way.
It's why it's set during World War One.
Yeah.
Plus that, and they fucked up in the previous.
You can kind of argue with Aquaman. He's kind of like their Thor.
But I mean,
but not like in the bad way though. Again,
I didn't get the same dark, edgy vibe from Aquaman that I got from Batman v Superman.
No, especially because Aquaman is so happy and cheerful in almost every single movie I've seen him.
Just like a bat.
Just like a bat.
I dig it.
No, I love their Aquaman because he's the '90s like muscly the only
edgy
Aquaman.
The only thing that's missing from making him like Justice League is that he's got to get the arm cut off, the hand cut off, and get the hook. I would pay
to see Jason Momoa with a, because Momoa would be like, no, give me the hook hand.
Give me the hook.
Give me the hook. I'm gonna
fuck some people up.
Oh
man, that'd be awesome. I'm sure there's got to be a fan photo manipulation somewhere
with him the hook hand.
Someone find me that and send it to me.
Because I love his Aquaman because he's the '90s Aquaman, but he's also the fun like Batman the Brave and the Bold Aquaman. Because I love the Brave and the Bold Aquaman where he's just chest puffed, just awesome.
I like both versions of Aquaman. I like the dark stuff, but I also like the more like
like
him surfing using dolphins as skis, like kind of shit. Like, that's funny.
Like I love the New 52 Aquaman where he's like, no, I don't talk to fish. I make them do things for me, and then I eat them because, like, what else am I gonna eat down here in the ocean? Like when he goes to that restaurant and orders the fish and chips, and they're all like, you can't do that. You talk to fish. I mean, I talk to dolphins.
I'm a goddamn Aquaman. I can
dolphins and whales are smart. I can actually have a conversation with them. Fish are stupid. Fish are basically like my deer. Basically. Do you feel bad eating deer or cows? No. So let me eat my fish and chips in peace. But like the characters like I don't know. And to be fair, I kind of wanted to just do a kind of a what if with you real quick. Cause I mean, we really haven't talked for a stupidly long amount of time like we usually do. But I was wondering, do you think there's a character that Marvel has that is inherently like what they always they chase after, like DC with Batman?
Spider-Man.
I'd say Spider. I almost want to say with the MCU it was Iron Man, just because like there's a lot.
It's a hard question because they didn't have access to everybody when they started doing MCU.
That is very true.
So obviously they kind of had to go with Tony Stark and with Iron Man because they couldn't get Spidey because those legal rights were over at Sony, and Sony was like, yeah, no.
I do think
Plus the MCU wasn't big, so it's like I feel like. But at the same time, I feel like they've chased Spidey because Spidey is their fucking house character.
And I also guess you could argue that like out of all of the Marvel movies they made before the MCU, the one that everyone still says is really good is the Raimi Spider-Man films because the X-Men.
I still claim those are the best. The
X-Men went belly up real fast, and then you had Daredevil, which is. I mean, I like the director's cut of Daredevil.
There are people that like Daredevil. Daredevil's a mixed bag.
I am one of those people that likes Daredevil.
What else did we have? We had Punisher.
which...
And I don't even remember anything about it.
They made like 3 Punisher movies. They did that. They did the 80s one I talked about. The Punisher that they made. I'm
talking about the Punisher.
And then they made Punisher Warzone.
I know I've seen it, and I just don't remember anything about it.
Yeah, I know people tell me that Warzone is the best of the 3.
I've seen Daredevil, and I don't remember a whole lot about it. I saw it when it came out.
Oh, you remember something. Wake me up
the scene with Jennifer Gardner.
Save me!
Okay, the most 2000s action movie I've ever fucking seen.
Like, I like that movie, but man, the Jennifer Garner Elektra is so bad.
I remember more about Fantastic Four than I remember about Daredevil.
Like the only other movies that I think were any successful aside from Spidey was Blade, and even then, Blade went downhill really fast too.
Cody's gonna pop out of nowhere. Excuse me? He's gonna be watching this right now and be like, "What?"
I mean, and while I do agree with you, I think, but in terms of like maybe the MCU, I do feel kind of like the Iron Man thing, because like you and I both talk about how much they try to make Spidey the next Iron Man in those movies.
Oh, little Iron Man Jr.
Going to cry?
Going to cry?
Because you can argue like almost every one of the origin movies that they've done have been basically like Iron Man. Like this character's kind of a jerk, but he's a likable jerk. Something happens to him.
Not his fucking Cap, because that's not who Cap is.
Like, and he's a likable jerk, but then something happens to them that intrinsically causes them to reevaluate their lives. They become a superhero, and then they fight a clone of themselves.
Imagine if they
Iron Man 1 is like that.
Imagine if they had done a Black Widow origin.
It
would have literally just been her killing people.
I mean, we're getting that, so I don't know. Maybe she will fight a somehow evil clone of herself. But like, look at Iron Man. Iron Man was like that with Ironmonger. Ant-Man's like that with Yellow Jacket. Kind of. But like, to be fair, that's just a problem with adapting that book, because Winter Soldier is kind of in a way the Russian Captain America, even though he's not really. To be honest, you could argue that the Red Skull is a clone of Cap, since they both were made from the Super Soldier Serum. In
Soviet Russia, steel is man.
I'm trying to think of some of the other ones, like Hulk with Abomination. Abomination is basically just the Hulk except uglier. But like for me, I feel like if you were to compare it, I would say it would be Iron Man, just because like that was like the template for their movies.
Yeah, it was the copy paste.
And even then, I actually do agree with a lot of people that say that, because like, and to be fair, I can argue differences. Like you said, Captain America, the first Avenger, Captain Marvel, actually, because like it's not. Well, then again, Captain Marvel's not really her movie, is it?
No, it's a Nick Fury movie.
Nick Fury with her in it.
As disappointing as that is.
I
love that movie.
And keep in mind, we both like Captain Marvel.
I own a steelbook of that movie.
Yeah, I like Captain Marvel, but like I wanted to like it more than I did. Is the problem, because I was like, oh, I was ready for like her to like fight like aliens and stuff, and then it's mostly Nick Fury.
Maybe Captain Marvel 2 will be better.
I'm hoping Captain Marvel 2 will fix a lot of the issues I had with that. Although I think the problem is most people, their complaint is it's Brie Larson. That's the problem with the movie. It's not really the problem with that movie.
It's like, if you have that much problem with Brie Larson, it's like,
then why did you watch it?
It's like, then do you guys have issue with Scarlett Johansson saying that there should be no pandering to different nationalities and stuff? I can just play whatever I want. It's like, I have more issue with her saying that than,
like, for me, the thing that I was
as much as I love Scarlett Jo, it's like, Miss, I can play a tree if I want. I'm like, what? I got where she was coming from with
like,
that,
like,
but it's like, that wording was terrible.
And to be fair, that's not even about her as like Scarlett. It was about her being the Major in Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
And even I'm like, who really like? People are like, oh, it's whitewashing. I'm like, have you watched Ghost in the Shell? The Major doesn't look Japanese at all. Like, yes, she's a Japanese, but like the whole thing is like she's in a cybernetic body.
No, when I think whitewashing, I think more like Johnny Depp as Toto in Tonto and fucking Lone Ranger, or fucking what's another really blatant one? That's not from before fucking 1990, because I don't count those. Because that's just how Hollywood was.
That's just an unfortunate.
As unfortunate as it is, that's just how Hollywood was.
The unfortunate truth about Hollywood, like, because.
Shit, what's another one?
Because like even then when they do,
you could kind of say Tom Holland is. Because he basically is a lot like Miles, but I don't know if that's fair. Exactly.
I don't think that's really fair, because I don't think the intent was they wanted to make a white Miles.
No, I don't think it was.
It was they wanted to write him like the ultimate Spider-Man.
The only one I can really think of is Johnny Depp right now, off the top.
I know some people complain about the ancient one not being Tibetan, but that wasn't really Marvel's fault. That was more the fault of the fact that if they did stuff with Tibet, they couldn't send that movie to China for them to view, because they have a real big problem with Tibet.
Yeah.
So like, that wasn't done out of spite. That was, we're trying to sell this across the globe.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the fact that they named the Triceratops robot Slug in Transformers, because you can't name him Slag, or else you can't sell it to the UK markets, because that's a swear word. So like
which makes me wonder what Batman Beyond was like over there. Remember those times where he says "slag it"?
Oh yeah, they probably had to change it to like him saying like "frag it," or like just
probably
censored
just a dub or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's
because honestly, I feel like if there's anything that Marvel tries to chase, it's that they try to stick with a formula that works, and I think that's the same problem with the Batman formula. It's they wanted to try and be like Christopher Nolan's. Except that I don't think Christopher Nolan had a formula. I think he just wanted to make movies, and that's what he did. And unfortunately, DC just hasn't gotten around to getting out of that mindset. You know, like if I could do anything, I would say, you know, start trying to make both. Do it with characters that it makes sense, but not with because I that was one of my problems with the Superman stuff. I was like, you can't do that with Superman. He's not a character that shouldn't be gray in color. Is my essential complaint with that. You have anything else?
No, I've basically said all I have with it. It's just it's a battle between artistic integrity and just money, and sometimes money. You know, to quote one of my favorite movies, to paraphrase Lisa, you've seen Apocalypse Now, correctly?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You remember the scene where Martin Sheen's character is getting briefed?
Yeah.
You know, and the general's talking, and it's like sometimes, you know, evil overcomes what Lincoln called the better angels of our nature.
Yeah. No, it's
good
true.
does not always triumph.
This is how democracy dies. With applause.
Yeah, it's really,
yes, I just quoted the Phantom Menace. Leave me alone.
Yeah, that's just what I view, is that it's like it comes down to artistic integrity versus money, and sometimes money wins, sometimes artistic integrity wins, and it's always back and forth. It's a tug of war.
Yeah, that's the problem, because you can't just say, well, I want to have an artistic integrity and make money. Sometimes it just doesn't work out that way.
You can't make great art and make money.
So that's why I wish it was more like the Renaissance, where it's like I make crap so I can use that money to make artistic.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, that's pretty much. I think we'll wrap that up. But like I said, I don't in summary, I don't think it's Batman's popularity that's at fault. I think what's at fault is that. Well, okay, yeah, it is Batman's popularity. It's not the character that's at fault.
It's DC's fault.
It's DC's
it's the parent
fault.
company.
No.
So
It always comes back to one man, Dan DiDio.
somehow it's Dan Slott's fault. I don't know how, but it's Dan
No,
Slott.
Dan DiDio has been my personal boogeyman since I was a child, too.
You know what I mean? Dan Slott's ruined part of my childhood, so I'm
Well,
like, you fucking did this to me.
I think I've told you about this, but Beast Wars, I love Beast Wars.
No, you told me about this before.
And then they're like, we'll give Beast Machines to Dan DiDio. And you know what he did? He didn't watch a single episode of Beast Wars. So all the characters act off. And he's like, I don't know what's going on, so I'm just going to do whatever I want. And because of that, no one likes it. You think about that, DiDio. You go to sleep with that night under your pillow. Like a mint. Or a tooth. Tooth spelled with an F instead of a TH.
It's like me with fucking with Slott. It's just like, nah, he goes to bed knowing he's a fucking failure, and most of the Marvel fandom doesn't like him. So that's punishment enough.
I mean, I do think that there's some problems with him, but for me, it's also a problem inherently that he was Joe Quesada's hitman for many years.
The both of them. No,
just
Quesada ought to be brought up on war crimes.
But anyway, guys, I think that's gonna wrap it up for us before we start foaming at the mouth about comic book writers like that. So anyway, guys, I think that's gonna wrap it up for today's episode. I'm Zongetsu134.
Average Joe Squad.
And once again, as you turn this off, we ask you to, as always, remember the hyphen. Take care.